Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The familiar hum of computer fans filled Harlan Whitmore's home office as he stared at the CAD design on his dual monitors. Complex mechanical specifications sprawled across the screens, the kind of engineering challenge that usually commanded his complete attention. But tonight, the intricate designs blurred before his eyes as his mind drifted to the moment everything in his marriage began to change. 6 months ago, this same office had witnessed the first crack in their foundation. He remembered it with painful clarity. The soft knock on his door, the way Eva-Lee had entered clutching her laptop like a shield against her chest, her practiced expression of enlightened superiority. "We need to talk about our relationship," she'd said, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. The chair where she used to sit during their late-night conversations, sharing dreams and plans. Now it felt like a witness stand. Harlan had immediately saved his work and turned away from the monitors. Their marriage had always been built on communication and mutual respect, principles he'd valued as much as the precision in his engineering work. "What's wrong?" he'd asked, giving her his full attention. The slight tremor in her hands as she opened her laptop hadn't escaped his notice. "I've been doing a lot of reading," Eva-Lee began, her voice taking on that rehearsed quality he'd come to recognize from her corporate presentations. "About modern relationships, about how we've been conditioned by society to view intimacy in such limited ways." The word limited had hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Harlan remembered feeling the first stirrings of unease, like the warning vibrations in a machine before catastrophic failure. "Limited in what way?" he'd prompted, keeping his voice neutral despite the growing knot in his stomach. Eva-Lee's fingers drummed against her laptop. "Physical intimacy," she said, her lip curling slightly as if the very words left a bad taste. "It's so base. Primitive, really. There are higher forms of connection we should be exploring. Emotional and intellectual bonds that transcend the physical." He'd laughed then, a mistake he would later recognize as the point of no return. "Are you saying you want to stop having sex?" "I'm saying I want to evolve beyond it." Her eyes had taken on that familiar, zealous gleam, the same one she'd gotten with every new self-improvement kick over the years. But this was different. The warmth that usually softened her enthusiasm was missing, replaced by something colder, more calculated. "There's this amazing online community I've found," she continued, turning her laptop to show him a website filled with pseudo-intellectual jargon about transcendent relationships and freedom from physical needs. They're exploring relationships free from the constraints of physical neediness. "It's fascinating, Harlan. They're achieving levels of intimacy most couples never reach." That conversation marked the beginning of their end. What Harlan initially dismissed as another passing phase, like the raw food diet or the crystal healing period, became their new reality. Eva-Lee's warmth, once freely given, vanished behind a wall of philosophical jargon and condescension. Now, 6 months later, Harlan saved his current project and shut down his computer. The house felt emptier than its generous square footage would suggest, hollow spaces echoing with the absence of the connection they'd once shared. He made his way to the kitchen, where Eva-Lee sat at the island, scrolling through her phone. A cup of green tea cooled untouched beside her. Another recent affectation from her new lifestyle. "I was thinking we could go out for dinner tonight," he said, keeping his voice casual despite the tension coiling in his shoulders. "Try that new Italian place downtown? The one you mentioned last month?" Eva-Lee didn't look up from her phone, her fingers tapping rapidly across the screen. "I already ate. Besides, I have an online discussion group tonight about transcending societal expectations in modern marriages." "Another one?" Harlan opened a refrigerator, using the door as a shield to hide his expression. The cool air did nothing to soothe the heat rising in his chest. "That's the third this week. Because it's important work," she said, her voice taking on that lecturing tone that made his jaw clench. The same tone she'd used in college when explaining why his engineering major was less evolved than her communications degree. "While you're stuck in outdated paradigms of relationship satisfaction, some of us are exploring genuine connection." Harlan grabbed a beer, letting the door swing shut with more force than necessary. The bottles in the door rattled, a small satisfaction. And what exactly makes our connection less genuine? Finally, she looked up, the expression on her face. That mixture of pity and superiority made him want to sweep everything off the kitchen island in one violent motion. Instead, he twisted the cap off his beer with controlled precision. Your need to express everything through physical intimacy, for one, she said, as if explaining something to a particularly slow child. It's actually quite primitive when you think about it. The truly evolved understand that real connection happens on a higher plane. 10 years of marriage crystallized in that moment. The way she used to look at him with love and respect, now replaced by this patronizing disdain. Harlan took a long pull from his beer, studying his wife over the bottle. She was still beautiful. Ash blonde hair falling past her shoulders, green eyes that used to sparkle when she looked at him. Now those eyes held only cold dismissal. Right? He set the bottle down with deliberate care. And I suppose Cyrus understands all this evolved thinking. Something flickered across Evelie's face, too quick to name, but enough to trigger Harlan's finely tuned instincts for mechanical failure. He does, actually. Her voice brightened at the mention of their friend. He's been attending the seminars, too. He really gets it, Harlan. Maybe if you came to one. I'll pass. The words came out clipped precise, like measurements in one of his designs. This is exactly what I mean. Evelie stood, gathering her phone and the untouched tea. You're not even willing to explore new ideas. You're so trapped in your rigid thinking. She shook her head, the gesture perfectly calculated to convey disappointment. I'll be in my study. Please don't interrupt unless it's important. We're discussing the liberation of moving beyond physical needs tonight. Harlan watched her leave, noting the extra care she'd taken with her appearance lately. Subtle makeup, fitted clothes, delicate perfume. All for her online discussions, supposedly. He pulled out his own phone, opening the messaging app to a conversation with Cyrus from a few weeks ago. Looking forward to seeing you and Evelie at dinner Friday, Cyrus had written. Always enlightening to discuss these ideas in person. The memory of that dinner rose unbidden. Cyrus in his perfectly tailored suit, with his practiced smile and manicured hands. The way he nodded along as Evelie expounded on her new philosophy. The way their eyes met across the table, holding for just a moment too long. Setting his beer down, Harlan opened his laptop and pulled up their shared family calendar. Evelie had an awful lot of discussion groups scheduled, often during times he knew Cyrus's wife was busy with charity events. The coincidence felt too precise, like a gear ratio calculated to create specific results. He minimized the calendar as Evelie's footsteps approached. She breezed through the kitchen, touching up her lipstick in her compact mirror. Her wedding ring was conspicuously absent, the third time this week. The group might run late tonight, she said, not meeting his eyes. Don't wait up. Wouldn't dream of it. Harlan kept his voice neutral, a skill learned from years of client meetings. Enjoy your evolution. The click of her heels on hardwood faded, followed by the sound of her car, starting and pulling away. Harlan finished his beer slowly, methodically, like completing the final checks on a prototype. Then he opened his laptop again. It was time to start paying closer attention to his wife's evolution. Time to look for the mechanical flaws in her carefully constructed narrative. After all, that's what he did best: analyze systems, find weaknesses, and prepare for catastrophic failure. And something in his marriage was failing catastrophically. The next few weeks settled into an uncomfortable rhythm. Evelie's discussion groups grew more frequent, always scheduled with precise care around Harlan's work commitments. She started taking calls in the garden, her voice carrying through the kitchen window in fragments. Yes, exactly. No, he doesn't understand. Tonight? I'll need to make an excuse. Harlan watched, documented, and waited. His engineering mind approached the problem methodically, gathering data points like measurements for a critical project. The missing wedding ring. The new perfume. The way she tilted her phone screen away whenever he entered the room. One evening, as summer heat pressed against the windows, Harlan made what he knew would be a critical tactical error. He suggested hosting a dinner party. We haven't had friends over in ages, he said over breakfast, watching Evelie pick at her avocado toast. Maybe this Saturday? Just a small group? She glanced up from her phone, interest flickering across her face. That could work. Who are you thinking of inviting? Mark and Jennifer from next door. Tom and Lisa from my office. He paused, testing the waters. Maybe Cyrus and Lorraine? Perfect. The word came too quickly, too eagerly. Cyrus was just saying how he misses our intellectual discussions. Harlan spread butter on his toast with methodical precision. I'm sure he does. The days leading up to the dinner party revealed subtle shifts in Emily's behavior. She spent hours planning the menu, insisted on new place settings, changed her outfit 3 times. All for a casual dinner with friends. Saturday evening arrived with the promise of revelations. Harlan stood in their kitchen, watching Emily arrange appetizers on their granite countertop. She'd chosen a dress he'd never seen before, deep blue, cutting just above the knee. The kind of dress designed to draw attention while pretending not to. The doorbell chimed. Mark and Jennifer arrived first, bringing wine and carefully neutral smiles. Tom and Lisa followed, then Cyrus and Lorraine. Him in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her in a conservative black dress that screamed old money. Harlan, my friend. Cyrus's handshake lasted a beat too long, his smile never reaching his eyes. Been too long, hasn't it though? Harlan matched his grip pressure exactly. Emily tells me you've been quite busy with these discussion groups. Something flickered behind Cyrus's practiced smile. Ah yes, fascinating stuff. Really opens your mind to new possibilities. I'm sure it does. They moved to the dining room, where Emily had arranged the seating with suspicious care. She'd placed herself across from Cyrus, with Harlan at the head of the table, seemingly respectful, but ensuring clear sight lines between her and her intellectual companion. Dinner began smoothly enough. They discussed safe topics, work, the weather, local politics. But as the wine flowed and plates emptied, Emily steered the conversation toward her favorite subject. You should see the transformation in our relationship, she announced, gesturing with her wine glass. The red liquid caught the light like blood. Once you let go of primitive physical needs, you discover such deeper connections. Around the table, their friends shifted uncomfortably. Tom suddenly found his empty plate fascinating. Lisa studied her wine glass as if it held secrets. But Cyrus leaned forward, eyes bright with rehearsed intensity. It's fascinating, really, he added, swirling his own wine. How many couples limit themselves to purely physical expressions of intimacy? Harlan gripped his fork tighter, watching the interaction like an engineer observing a stress test. Every gesture, every glance between them confirmed his suspicions. Emily practically glowed under Cyrus's attention, a flush creeping up her neck that had nothing to do with the wine. Harlan still adjusting to the concept. Emily continued, her tone dripping with condescension. Some men are just so wrapped up in outdated notions of marriage. Jennifer choked slightly on her wine. Mark patted her back, eyes darting between Harlan and Emily like someone watching an impending car crash. Well, Lisa attempted. Everyone has their own path, right? Tom and I just celebrated our 15th. It's actually quite sad when you think about it, Emily talked over her. All these men obsessed with sex like teenagers, unable to evolve beyond their base urges. The silence that followed felt like the moment before an explosion. Harlan set his fork down with deliberate care. Emily, his voice cut through the tension like a precision blade. Maybe we should change the subject. She turned to him, eyes bright with challenge. The wine had loosened her usual careful control, revealing the cruel edge beneath. Why? Does it make you uncomfortable to discuss your limitations? Your inability to transcend physical need for higher connection? What makes me uncomfortable? Harlan said carefully, measuring each word like a critical calculation. Is you turning our private life into dinner conversation? See? Emily gestured toward him as if he were a specimen under glass. Classic defensive response. When confronted with evolved thinking, the primitive mind retreats into shame and anger. Cyrus nodded sagely, running his finger around the rim of his wine glass. It's a common reaction. The ego protecting itself from growth. How fascinating. Harlan's voice could have frozen nitrogen. And I suppose you've evolved beyond all that, Cyrus? Their eyes met across the table, a silent exchange of hostility masked by social niceties. Cyrus's practiced smile slipped for just a moment, revealing something darker underneath. "More wine, anyone?" Jennifer's desperate offer shattered the moment. "Please," Harlan said, not breaking eye contact with Cyrus. "I think we could all use some." The rest of dinner devolved into a masterclass in social discomfort. Everly and Cyrus dominated the conversation, speaking their shared language of pseudo-intellectual garbage about transcendence and evolution. They seemed to finish each other's sentences, their bodies unconsciously mirroring each other's movements. Harlan watched it all with the detached focus of a scientist observing a particularly interesting experiment. He noted how Lorraine's smile grew more strained with each interaction between her husband and Everly. How Mark and Jennifer exchanged worried glances. How Tom and Lisa's attempts at changing the subject grew increasingly desperate. Finally, after what felt like years, their guests made their excuses and fled. Harlan stood in the kitchen, mechanically loading the dishwasher as Everly floated around the room, still riding the high of her performance. "Well, that was illuminating," she said, dropping her wine glass in the sink with a clatter that made him wince. "Though I doubt most of them were ready for such advanced concepts." "Advanced concepts?" Harlan straightened, fixing her with a hard stare. "Is that what we're calling public humiliation now?" Everly sighed dramatically, the sound practiced to perfection. "This is exactly what I mean. You're so caught up in your ego that you can't even discuss these ideas without feeling attacked. Because you are attacking me. In front of our friends. I'm trying to help you grow." She pulled out her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. A small smile played across her lips as she read something. The same smile she used to give him, now reserved for mysterious messages. "But you're clearly not ready for this level of enlightenment. And Cyrus is, I suppose?" Her head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "Cyrus understands the journey. He's done the work, Harlan. Unlike some people who cling to their limitations." A message notification chimed. Everly's face softened as she read it. Her lower lip caught between her teeth in a gesture he hadn't seen directed at him in months. "Important message?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Just a discussion group." She turned away quickly, but not before he caught the guilty flash in her eyes. "I'm heading up to bed. Don't forget to set the alarm." Harlan finished loading the dishwasher, his movements mechanical as his mind processed the evening's data points. He thought about Cyrus's smug face, about Everly's glowing reaction to every word he spoke. He thought about her missing wedding ring, her constant phone checking, her late-night discussion groups. The evidence was mounting. But Harlan knew that in engineering, as in life, you needed absolute proof before declaring a catastrophic failure. And he intended to get that proof. The digital clock on Harlan's monitor cast an eerie blue glow across his office, its numbers marking time with merciless precision. 3:47 a.m. The house around him felt alive with secrets, every creak and settling sound a whispered confession in the pre-dawn darkness. Sleep had become impossible after the dinner party. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the looks between Everly and Cyrus, replayed their synchronized movements, analyzed their shared smiles. Even now, hours after midnight, he could hear Everly's phone buzzing in their bedroom, message after message in the dark. Their shared laptop sat before him, its screen a gateway to either confirmation or paranoia. They'd always known each other's passwords, a practice born in the early days of their marriage when trust flowed as naturally as breathing. He'd never felt the need to check up on his wife before. But engineering had taught him one crucial lesson. When a system shows signs of failure, you investigate before catastrophe strikes. His finger clicked the trackpad before doubt could take root. Everly's email loaded instantly, organized with her typical precision. The first layer seemed innocent enough. Work correspondence with her marketing team, online shopping confirmations, newsletters about spiritual growth and personal development. But there, nested in a folder labeled Personal Growth Journey, he found hundreds of emails between Everly and Cyrus, spanning back nearly 8 months. Harlan's jaw clenched as he opened the most recent thread. "My dearest E," Cyrus had written 2 days ago. "Last night was transcendent. The way you moved, the sounds you made. who knew spiritual evolution could be so physical. The marks you left on my back will remind me of our connection all day. Harlan's hands curled into fists, then deliberately relaxed. An engineer doesn't let emotion compromise analysis. He kept reading. The emails contained photographs, dozens of them. Explicit images that burned into his retinas, showing his wife and Cyrus in positions she'd always refused with him. It's degrading, she'd said whenever he'd suggested anything beyond the basics. I'm not that kind of woman. But there she was in image after image, being exactly that kind of woman for Cyrus. Video clips followed, their timestamps matching her discussion group meetings. The audio made his stomach turn, not from the acts themselves, but from the magnitude of betrayal they represented. Evelie's voice, breathless and eager, begging for things she'd sworn she found disgusting. I love how you beg for it, Cyrus had written in one exchange. So different from your eyes, Queen act with him. Evelie's response made something cold and hard crystallize in Harlan's chest. Poor Harlan thinks I've evolved beyond physical needs. If he knew how many times you've bent me over your desk. Smiling face with horns, it's almost too easy. Watching him try to understand my spiritual journey while I'm really just finding new ways to submit to you. A particularly graphic email chain caught his attention. In it, Evelie enthusiastically described acts she'd claimed to find repulsive throughout their marriage. I never let him do this, she wrote to Cyrus. The thought of anal with him made me sick. But with you, I crave it. I dream about it. I love being your dirty little slut. Love how you make me beg for it. How you know exactly what I need. Harlan closed his eyes, taking several deep breaths. When he opened them again, his face had settled into something eerily calm. He began methodically copying everything to an encrypted drive, organizing the evidence by date and type. His movements were precise, controlled, like when he was designing a particularly complex machine. Each file was labeled with mechanical efficiency. Dates, times, participants. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made him freeze. A moment later, Evelie's voice drifted through the door, pitched low for secrecy. I can't talk long, she whispered into her phone. He's asleep. Yes, I miss you too. Tomorrow afternoon? Perfect. He has that client meeting until 6. Harlan minimized the email window and pulled up a random CAD design as the door creaked open. Light from the hallway spilled in, carrying Evelie's shadow. Working late, she asked, trying to master surprise with conjugal concern. Deadline, he said shortly, not turning around. Every muscle in his body tense with the effort of maintaining normalcy. Go back to bed. Don't stay up too late. Her voice dripped with false concern. You know how you get when you're overtired? The door closed. Harlan waited until her footsteps faded before reopening the emails. He worked until sunrise, downloading every message, every photo, every video that proved his wife's betrayal. When he finally finished, he cleared the browser history and shut down the laptop with surgical precision. Standing at his office window, he watched the sun paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. In a few hours, Evelie would wake up and continue her performance as the enlightened wife who had transcended physical needs. She would look him in the eye and lie, never suspecting that her carefully constructed facade was about to crumble. He thought about the woman he'd married, bright, ambitious, seemingly genuine. He remembered their wedding day, how she'd promised to be faithful, to honor their connection above all others. Now those vows lay shattered, replaced by a web of lies so intricate it would have been impressive if it wasn't so devastating. The first rays of sunlight caught his face, and Harlan smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a man who had moved beyond anger into something colder, more calculated. The smile of someone who knew exactly how to dismantle a complex system, whether it was a machine or a life. He pulled out his phone and began composing an email to their family lawyer, James Morton. The message was brief, professional. Need to discuss divorce proceedings. Infidelity clause activation. Complete discretion required. Available to meet this week? Morton's response came minutes later. Tuesday, 2 p.m. Bring evidence. Harlan closed his email and opened a new document. He began listing assets, accounts, properties. everything that would need to be protected. His engineering mind approached the task like designing a new project. Identify components, analyze vulnerabilities, plan contingencies. In the kitchen below, he heard Eva starting her morning routine. The coffee maker hummed. Cups clinked. Her phone chimed with what he now knew were messages from Cyrus. She was probably already planning their afternoon rendezvous, confident in her ability to deceive. Let her plan. Let her think she had evolved beyond him, transcended their marriage vows with her spiritual awakening. Harlan knew better now. He understood the truth that would soon shatter her carefully constructed world. Every system has its breaking point. Every machine can be dismantled. Every betrayal has its price. The game was about to begin. James Morton's law office embodied old money and discretion, all dark wood and leather-bound books. Harlan sat across from the lawyer's massive mahogany desk, watching as Morton reviewed the evidence on a secure tablet. The lawyer's eyebrows climbed higher with each swipe. Finally, he set the tablet down and removed his reading glasses. "Well," Morton said, polishing the lenses with a monogrammed handkerchief, "this is quite thorough, Harlan. Quite thorough indeed." "I'm an engineer," Harlan replied. "Thoroughness is essential." "Indeed." Morton replaced his glasses, studying Harlan with sharp eyes. "And what exactly do you want to do with this evidence?" "Everything legal. Nothing merciful." Morton nodded slowly. "The infidelity clause in your prenup is ironclad. With this evidence, we can ensure Eva receives nothing beyond what she brought into the marriage." He paused, tapping his pen against the desk. "However, timing is crucial. If we move too quickly—" "I want them comfortable," Harlan interrupted. "Confident. I want them thinking they've won before we strike." A thin smile crossed Morton's face. "You have something specific in mind?" "I do." Harlan leaned forward, laying out his plan with the same precision he used for engineering projects. When he finished, Morton was nodding appreciatively. "Brutal but legal," the lawyer said. "I'll begin the paperwork. In the meantime, I play the fool." Back home, Harlan found Eva in their kitchen, preparing one of her new age smoothies. The irony of her clean living facade while carrying on a sordid affair wasn't lost on him. "How was your meeting?" she asked, not looking up from her blender. "Productive." He watched her carefully, noting how she checked her phone every few minutes. "Actually, I've been thinking about what you said, about evolution and transcendence." The blender stopped. Eva turned, surprise evident on her face. "You have. Maybe I've been too rigid." The words tasted like ash, but he forced them out. "Could you tell me more about these discussion groups?" Her eyes lit up with triumphant satisfaction. "Really? Oh, Harlan, this is wonderful. I knew you'd eventually understand." She stepped closer, touching his arm for the first time in months. "There's a seminar this weekend. Cyrus is leading it. He's become quite influential in the community." "Has he now?" Harlan kept his voice neutral, even as his fingers itched to pull away from her touch. "Perhaps I should attend." Yes, absolutely." She was practically glowing with perceived victory. "I'll text him right now." Harlan watched her grab her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. He imagined Cyrus receiving the message, probably smirking at how easily they'd brought the simple engineer around to their enlightened way of thinking. Let them smirk. Let them think they'd won. The next phase required careful groundwork. While Eva was distracted with her phone, Harlan slipped into his office and made a call. "Lorraine? It's Harlan Whitmore. Do you have time for coffee?" 2 hours later, he sat across from Cyrus's wife at an upscale cafe downtown. Lorraine Barlow carried herself with old money grace, but Harlan could see the strain around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands as she stirred her cappuccino. "I appreciate you meeting me," he said. "I wanted to discuss these seminars our spouses are so invested in." Lorraine's spoon clinked against her cup. "Oh, are you interested in attending?" "Actually, I'm concerned." He met her eyes directly. "About the amount of time they're spending together?" Color drained from Lorraine's face. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." "I think you do." Harlan's voice remained gentle but firm. "Have you noticed any changes in Cyrus lately? New behaviors? Late nights?" "He's dedicated to his spiritual growth." The words sounded rehearsed, desperate. Lorraine. Harlan leaned forward slightly. We both know what's really happening. Tears welled in her eyes. She blinked them back with practiced composure. What do you want from me, Harlan? Partnership. He pulled out his phone, showing her a carefully selected email. Nothing too explicit, but enough to confirm her fears. They think they're cleverer than us. Better than us. I plan to prove them wrong. Lorraine stared at the email, her aristocratic features hardening. Tell me everything. For the next hour, they talked strategy. Lorraine, it turned out, had suspected for months but lacked concrete proof. Her family money had made Cyrus untouchable. Until now. He has no idea I hired a private investigator last month, she said, a cold smile playing at her lips. The photos alone would ruin him. But I wanted more. Now you have it. Harlan outlined his plan, watching approval dawn in Lorraine's eyes. The vacation house, she said thoughtfully. Yes, that would be perfect. Cyrus thinks he's so careful, but he's gotten sloppy lately. Overconfident. They both have. Harlan sipped his coffee. Pride comes before a fall. When do we start? Already have. He showed her the transfer records he'd begun compiling. Every account, every asset, everything that needs to be protected or divided. The lawyers are drawing up papers as we speak. Lorraine's smile turned predatory. Cyrus always underestimated me. Thought I was just another trophy wife. She straightened her designer jacket. He forgot that old money comes with old lessons about vengeance. As they finished their coffee, Harlan felt a shift in the air, the satisfaction of pieces falling into place, of gears beginning to turn. Lorraine would make a powerful ally, her social connections and family influence adding another layer to his plan. One more thing, he said as they stood to leave. I'm attending their seminar this weekend. Playing the converted fool. Lorraine nodded approvingly. Perfect. Cyrus loves an ego boost. He'll never suspect. That's the idea. Harlan held the cafe door for her. Let them think they're winning. Let them get comfortable. And then we show them exactly how evolved we can be. The seminar venue reeked of false enlightenment. All bamboo floors and salt lamps, with motivational quotes stenciled on exposed brick walls. Harlan sat in the back row, watching Cyrus command the room like a televangelist selling salvation. Physical intimacy, Cyrus was saying, pacing the stage in his perfectly tailored suit, is just the beginning. The first step on a journey to something greater. His eyes found Evalie in the front row, lingering just long enough to make Harlan's jaw clench. Something transcendent. The audience, mostly women with expensive yoga pants and desperate eyes, nodded eagerly. Harlan noticed how they hung on every word, how they seemed to lean forward whenever Cyrus lowered his voice to share a particularly profound insight. Consider your current relationships, Cyrus continued. Are they truly evolved? Or are they trapped in primitive patterns of physical need? A woman 2 rows ahead of Harlan raised her hand. My husband doesn't understand. He thinks I'm rejecting him, but I'm trying to elevate our connection. Exactly. Cyrus beamed at her. Evalie, would you share your experience? Harlan watched his wife stand, turning to face the group. She was wearing the same dress from their first date. He realized with a surge of cold fury. When I first started this journey, Evalie said, my husband was resistant. Stuck in old paradigms. She glanced at Harlan with rehearsed affection. But with patience and guidance, even the most conventional minds can be opened. The group murmured appreciatively. Harlan forced himself to smile, to nod as if her words had touched something deep within him. He saw Cyrus watching his reaction, barely concealing his smug satisfaction. After the session, participants mingled over green juice and gluten-free snacks. Harlan approached Cyrus, who was holding court near the meditation cushions. Fascinating presentation, Harlan said, extending his hand. I think I'm finally beginning to understand. Cyrus's handshake was firm, dominant, a power play so obvious it was almost amusing. Harlan, your presence here means more than you know. Evalie was right. You're ready to evolve. She usually is right. Harlan released his hand, noting the flash of discomfort in Cyrus's eyes at the implied praise of Evalie. I've been too rigid, too focused on the physical. There's so much more to explore. Exactly. Cyrus clapped him on the shoulder. You know, we should discuss this further. Perhaps over dinner next week? Lorraine will be at her charity function, but Evalie and you could come by. We'll dive deeper into these concepts. I'd like that. Harlan smiled, imagining how perfectly their arrogance would play into his plans. Though I might be late. Client meeting? No problem at all. Cyrus's eyes flickered to Evalie, who was watching their interaction intently. We can start without you. I'm sure you can. Later that evening, Harlan sat in his home office, reviewing the recording from the small device he'd planted in his jacket pocket. Every word, every interaction captured with crystal clarity. He played back one particular exchange. Even the most conventional minds can be opened. His finger pressed the delete key, erasing another file from their shared laptop. Banking records, property documents, investment portfolios, all carefully relocated to accounts Evalie couldn't access. The screen reflected his cold smile as he worked. His phone buzzed with a text from Lorraine. Package delivered. GPS tracker active. Perfect. The pieces were falling into place. A soft knock at his office door preceded Evalie's entrance. She was practically glowing with perceived victory. I'm so proud of you, she said, perching on the edge of his desk like she used to in happier times. Today was a huge step. It was enlightening, Harlan agreed, closing his laptop. Cyrus is quite persuasive, isn't he? Her eyes sparkled with barely concealed excitement. And dinner next week will be amazing. We can really explore these concepts in depth. I look forward to it. You watch her check her phone, probably texting Cyrus already. Though I might be late. That client meeting might run long. Oh, don't worry about that. She waved dismissively. Cyrus and I can start the discussion. Get the energy flowing before you join us. I'm sure you can. Harlan kept his voice neutral, even as he imagined them planning their rendezvous. Will you be driving separately? I can meet you there. Perfect. She beamed, already standing. I should go prepare some notes, really make the most of this opportunity. After she left, Harlan opened his laptop again and pulled up the GPS tracking app. The small device Lorraine had planted in Evalie's car blinked steadily on the screen. Another was hidden in her favorite handbag, the one she always took to discussion groups. His phone buzzed again. A message from Morton. Paperwork ready. Account secured. Awaiting your signal. Harlan opened his calendar and began plotting the final moves. The vacation house, technically owned by one of his old business ventures, was ready. The cameras were in place, hidden but perfectly positioned to capture every betrayal, every lie. He thought about Cyrus's smug face at the seminar, about Evalie's condescending pride in his evolution. Let them think they'd won. Let them believe they'd successfully manipulated the simple engineer into accepting their deception. Their own arrogance would be their undoing. Another text from Lorraine. See making dinner reservations for next week. Private room at Azure. Sending pictures of their usual meeting spots. Harlan opened the attached photos. Cyrus and Evalie entering various hotels, restaurants, their hands all over each other the moment they thought they were unobserved. Lorraine's private investigator had been thorough. He saved the photos to his encrypted drive, then composed a message to Morton. Begin Phase 2. Send the first warning shots. The response came quickly. Letters to their employers drafted. Financial irregularities documented. Ready on your mark. Perfect. While they played their games of spiritual enlightenment, the trap was closing around them. Every account, every asset, every escape route, all being systematically cut off. Harlan pulled up the blueprints for the vacation house, studying the camera placements one more time. The video feeds were crystal clear, ready to capture every moment of their destruction. Footsteps in the hallway made him minimize the windows. Evalie appeared in the doorway, dressed for bed in silk pajamas he'd never seen before. Don't stay up too late, she said, her voice honey-sweet with false concern. You need your rest for this journey of growth. Of course, he nodded, playing the role of converted husband perfectly. Just finishing some work. After she left, Harlan reopened the blueprints. 1 week. One more week of their lies, their betrayal, their smug superiority. Then they would learn exactly what kind of growth he had in mind. The kind that destroys everything it touches. The vacation house stood silent against the afternoon sky, its windows reflecting the setting sun like watching eyes. Harlan sat in his car a block away, monitoring the feeds from the hidden cameras on his tablet. Everything was in position. His phone lit up with a message from Lorraine. They took the bait. He just left her house. See, leaving office now. Perfect timing. He opened his laptop and connected to the house's security system. The cameras were active, their feeds crisp and clear. In the master bedroom, the hidden microphones picked up even the slightest sound. Another text from Morton. All documents prepared. Standing by. Harlan checked his watch. By now, Evalee would be thinking he was stuck in his client meeting. Cyrus would have made his excuses to Lorraine about working late. Their arrogance made them predictable. His phone buzzed again. A message from Evalee. Meeting running long here too. Might be a few hours before I'm home. Don't wait up. No problem, he typed back. Focus on work anyway. Take your time. 20 minutes later, Evalee's car pulled into the vacation house driveway. She checked her makeup in the rearview mirror, then hurried to the door with poorly concealed excitement. The security camera caught her entering the code, the one she thought only she and Cyrus knew. Inside, she moved through the house with familiar ease, heading straight for the master bedroom. Harlan watched her prepare for her lover's arrival, his jaw clenching as she sprayed on the perfume she used to wear for him. Cyrus arrived 10 minutes later, letting himself in like he owned the place. The cameras caught his smug smile as he climbed the stairs, already loosening his tie. Harlan opened his encrypted drive and began the recording sequence. Every camera, every microphone, capturing evidence that would destroy their carefully constructed lies. His phone lit up with a call from Lorraine. "They're inside," she asked without preamble. "Yes. Good." Her voice was cold with controlled fury. "The email blast is ready. One word from you, and everyone sees exactly who they really are." Harlan watched the bedroom feed as Cyrus and Evalee embraced, their masks of spiritual enlightenment forgotten in their rush to betray their spouses. "Wait for my signal," he said. "Let them dig the hole deeper." Through the cameras, he could hear their conversation clearly. "Poor Harlan," Cyrus laughed, running his hands over Evalee's body. "All that talk about evolution and transcendence. He actually bought it? He's so simple," Evalee agreed, working on Cyrus's shirt buttons. "An engineer to the core? Show him some spiritual garbage and he'll analyze it to death while we're right here, doing everything he thinks I'm too evolved for." Their laughter cut off as they fell onto the bed, all pretense of higher consciousness forgotten in their base desires. Harlan's finger hovered over the command that would begin their destruction. "Not yet. Let them sink deeper into their betrayal. Let them think they're completely safe." His phone buzzed with updates from their plan's other phases. "Morton, financial transfers complete. Accounts secured. Lorraine, PI's full surveillance package ready. Morton, divorce papers finalized. Infidelity clause ironclad." On the camera feed, Evalee and Cyrus were lost in their passion, oblivious to their impending doom. The microphones picked up every word, every moan, every betrayal in crystal clear quality. "I want you to do all the things he never could," Evalee gasped. "Show me what a real man feels like." Cyrus's response was exactly what Harlan needed: crude, explicit, destroying any possibility of innocent explanation. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the bedroom windows as their affair played out in high definition. Harlan documented everything methodically, time-stamping the most damning moments. Finally, as they lay tangled in the sheets, their conversation turned to their future plans. "We should go away together," Cyrus suggested, tracing patterns on Evalee's skin. "Once Harlan accepts this spiritual evolution nonsense completely, you can suggest a trial separation. For growth, of course." Evalee laughed. "He'd probably thank me for helping him transcend earthly attachments." Her voice turned mocking. "Oh yes, dear, I completely understand. Your journey is so important." "And Lorraine?" Cyrus's tone was dismissive. "She's too focused on her charity work to notice anything. Besides, her family money means I'll never have to work again once this all plays out." That was it, the final confession Harlan needed. He picked up his phone and typed a single message to their entire team. Execute. Within seconds, their phones began buzzing with notifications. Harlan watched through the cameras as Evalee and Cyrus reached for their devices, confusion turning to horror on their faces. The video evidence of their affair was streaming to everyone in their social circle, friends, family, colleagues. Their masks of spiritual enlightenment shattered as the world saw them for what they really were. "Oh my God," Evalie whispered, scrolling through her phone. "Oh my God, no." Cyrus jumped from the bed, frantically checking his own messages. "This can't be happening. My clients, my partners," their phones kept buzzing as the evidence spread. Photos, videos, explicit messages. Everything laid bare for the world to see. The very people who had praised their evolved approach to marriage now watched them destroy that illusion in real time. Harlan started his car and pulled away from his observation point. In his rearview mirror, he saw Cyrus's car peel out of the vacation house driveway, tires squealing in panic. Evalie's would follow soon, he knew, both running home to try to contain the damage. But there would be no containment, no damage control, no explanation that could save them. His phone rang. "Lorraine." "It's done," she said, satisfaction evident in her voice. "The divorce papers are being delivered to both of them right now. The financial transfers are complete. They're ruined, Harlan. Absolutely ruined." "Good." He drove calmly toward his office, where Morton waited with the final phase of their plan. "How's it feel?" "Like justice." She paused. "Cyrus just called, begging, crying about his reputation. I blocked him. Evalie will be next," Harlan said, probably already composing some speech about growth and forgiveness. "Let them beg." Lorraine's voice was steel. "We've evolved beyond forgiveness, haven't we?" Harlan smiled as he pulled into his office parking lot. Completely transcended it. Inside, Morton waited with a thick stack of documents. The lawyer's expression was one of professional satisfaction as he laid out the papers. "The infidelity clause has been activated," he said. "Combined with the financial evidence we gathered, they'll be lucky to keep the clothes they're wearing." Harlan signed where indicated, his signature precise and final. No emotion, no hesitation. Just the methodical completion of a well-designed plan. His phone buzzed continuously with messages from Evalie. "Please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. Don't do this to us. I love you, please." He left them unread. Let her words sit there, ignored, just like his feelings had been ignored for months. Morton gathered the signed papers. "Shall I have these delivered to her tonight?" "Yes." Harlan stood straightening his tie. "And Morton? Make sure she understands there will be no negotiation, no meditation, no evolved discussion about growth. Just destruction." The lawyer nodded. "Complete and absolute." Harlan walked to the window, watching the sun set on his marriage. After all, isn't that the highest form of transcendence? The front door slammed open with enough force to rattle the windows. Harlan sat in his home office, calmly reviewing financial documents as Evalie's heels clicked frantically across the hardwood floors. "Harlan's," her voice cracked with desperation. "Harlan, please, we need to talk." He continued working, listening to her movement through the house. The sound of her discovering her frozen credit cards would come soon enough. "How could you do this?" She burst into his office, mascara streaking her cheeks. "My God, everyone saw everything. My followers, our friends." "Your followers?" Harlan looked up, his voice arctic. "Are these the same followers you preached your doctrine of sexless marriage to, while you were fucking Cyrus behind my back?" "It's not." She stepped forward, hands outstretched. "You don't understand. The physical aspect with Cyrus, it was part of a deeper spiritual journey. He pulled up the video feed from the vacation house on his monitor, turning it so she could see. "Is that what you call begging him to bend you over his desk? Telling him to do things you said disgusted you when I suggested them?" Color drained from her face as she watched herself on screen. You recorded us?" "I recorded everything." Harlan opened another folder. "Every meeting, every hotel, every lie. Would you like to see the timestamps? They match perfectly with your discussion groups." "Please," she whispered, sinking into the chair across from his desk. "We can work through this. We can evolve past." "Evolve?" The word cut like a blade. "Let's talk about evolution, Evalie. Check your phone's banking apps." She pulled out her phone with trembling hands. He watched her face crumble as she discovered account after account frozen or emptied. What did you do? You remember our prenup? The infidelity clause you thought was so old-fashioned. Harlan's smile held no warmth. Turns out it was quite evolved after all. You can't. I can. I did. He slid a stack of papers across the desk. Your divorce papers. The infidelity clause leaves you with exactly what you brought into this marriage, which, as I recall, was nothing. No. She shook her head, desperate. No, I'll fight this. You'll what? Harlan pulled up another window. Contest it with evidence from your spiritual journey? Please do. I'm sure the judge would love to see these videos. Or perhaps these messages about how you plan to manipulate me into a trial separation while you and Cyrus spent my money. Tears fell onto the divorce papers. I didn't mean to get caught. He closed his laptop with deliberate care. That's the problem with evolved beings like you and Cyrus. You think you're so much smarter than everyone else. So much more sophisticated. Her phone buzzed continuously, messages from her followers pouring in. He could imagine their content. Accusations of hypocrisy, screenshots of her preaching about transcending physical needs, while the evidence of her affair spread across social media. My reputation, she whispered. My platform is destroyed. Harlan's voice remained calm. Just like our marriage. What about Cyrus? Did you? Cyrus has his own problems. He checked his watch. Right about now, he's discovering that Lorraine's family money comes with some very evolved ideas about prenuptial agreements. And his business partners are receiving some interesting documentation about financial irregularities. Evelie's shoulders slumped in defeat. You planned this. All of it. The seminar, the client meeting. I learned from you, dear. The endearment dripped with acid. About transcending limitations. About evolution. Please. She reached for his hand across the desk. We had 10 years together. That has to mean something. Harlan pulled his hand back, as if her touch might contaminate him. It meant everything, until you decided to evolve beyond it. I'll do anything, she begged. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. I'll stop seeing Cyrus. I'll delete my social media. Just, please don't do this. Already done? He stood straightening his tie. You have 24 hours to pack your personal belongings. Anything you can prove you own before our marriage. The rest stays. Where am I supposed to go? Perhaps Cyrus can help. Harlan moved toward the door. Oh, wait. He's probably busy explaining to his wife why their joint accounts are empty, and to his partners why client money was being funneled into private accounts. You're destroying us? No. Evelie. He paused in the doorway. You did that all on your own. I'm just making sure everyone sees exactly who you really are. Her sobs followed him down the hallway as he walked to the kitchen. His phone buzzed with a message from Lorraine. She just tried accessing our accounts. Should have seen his face. Meeting with lawyers now. Thank you, Harlan. He poured himself a scotch, listening to Evelie's broken weeping from his office. The sound brought no satisfaction, no joy. Only a cold confirmation that justice had been served. His phone buzzed again. A message from Morton. All accounts secured. Restraining orders ready if needed. She won't get a penny. Perfect. Phase 1 of the fallout was proceeding exactly as planned. Now for Phase 2, ensuring their destruction was complete and irreversible. The next morning, Harlan watched from his study window as Evelie loaded a single suitcase into her car. Her designer clothes, jewelry, and the trappings of their shared life remained behind. All purchased during their marriage. All legally his now. His phone rang. Lorraine, you need to see this, she said without preamble. Turn on Channel 8. Harlan flicked on the office television. Cyrus's face filled the screen, looking significantly less polished than usual. The news ticker below read, local business leader accused of fraud and embezzlement. Breaking news, the anchor announced. Prominent businessman Cyrus Barlow faces multiple allegations of financial misconduct. Sources say millions in client funds were misappropriated through a complex scheme of fake spiritual seminars and self-help programs. Harlan's phone buzzed with another call, Cyrus himself. He put it on speaker. You bastard, Cyrus snarled, his evolved facade cracking. You had no right. No right. Harlan's voice remained calm. Like you had no right to fuck my wife while preaching about transcendence? Listen to me. Cyrus lowered his voice to a desperate whisper. Those financial records? I can explain everything. Just pull back the evidence and pull back. Harlan laughed coldly. Cyrus, those records are already with the SEC. Your partners are probably talking to their lawyers right now. How evolved do you feel? I'll lose everything. That's the point. Harlan watched another car pull up to his house, Evalee returning for more belongings. Consider it a lesson in transcendence, rising above material possessions. My reputation is exactly what you deserve. Harlan cut the connection and turned back to Lorraine on his other line. How are you holding up? Wonderfully. Her voice held a savage satisfaction. The trust fund clause in our prenup just activated. He doesn't get a penny of my family's money. He's been locked out of all accounts, properties, everything. Through the window, Harlan watched Evalee approach the front door. Hold on. Time for another performance. He opened the door before she could use her key. The locks had already been changed, but he wanted to see her face when she discovered this. I need more of my things, she said, trying to sound confident despite her red-rimmed eyes. Your things? Harlan raised an eyebrow. You mean the things purchased during our marriage? With my money? While you were sleeping with Cyrus? Don't be cruel. She stepped forward, then stopped as he blocked the doorway. I need my clothes, your spiritual development books? He smiled thinly. Your transcendence journals? Check your phone. I've sent a detailed list of what legally belongs to you. Anything not on that list stays. You can't just. Actually, I can. And I did. He pulled out his phone as it buzzed with a notification. Oh, look. Your followers are posting again. Shall we read some comments? Evalee's face crumpled as he began to read. Can't believe we fell for her lies. Preaching about evolving beyond physical needs while cheating on her husband. Hypocrite. Stop, she whispered. All those seminars about transcending material desires. And she was just using her husband's money to fund her affair. Disgusting. Please. My personal favorite, he scrolled down. Wonder how evolved she feels now that she's exposed as a fraud. Hope her husband takes her for everything. Evalee's shoulders shook with sobs. I was going to tell you, after the separation you and Cyrus planned, Harlan's voice could have frozen hell. While you spent my money, while you mocked me to your lover, I made a mistake. No. He stepped back, hand on the door. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was calculated betrayal. Month after month of lies, manipulation, and corruption. Harlan, please. She reached for him. 10 years of marriage are over. He began closing the door. The list of your legal belongings is in your email. You have 1 hour to collect them. Anything left behind will be donated. What about my car? My phone? Purchased during our marriage. With my money? He smiled coldly. But don't worry. There's a bus stop 2 blocks away. Perfect for your spiritual journey. The door closed with finality. Through the security camera, he watched her collapse on the front step, decades of carefully constructed superiority crumbling to dust. His phone buzzed again. Morton. Cyrus's partners just called an emergency board meeting, the lawyer reported. The evidence we provided about the embezzlement. Let's just say he won't be leading any spiritual seminars for a while. And the other matter? The SEC is very interested in his creative accounting, particularly the parts about using seminar fees to fund his lifestyle with your wife. Perfect. Harlan pulled up his email, where dozens of messages from their social circle poured in. Friends, family, colleagues, all expressing shock, disgust, and support for his actions. A particular email caught his eye, from Benjamin Wright, Cyrus's largest client. Just saw the news. Those seminars he convinced me to invest in. Was any of it real? My lawyers are reviewing everything. Thank you for exposing this fraud. Harlan composed a careful response, ensuring it would be shared widely, just seeking truth and transparency. Like Cyrus always preached about. The sound of Evalee's car starting, then pulling away, drew his attention back to the security feed. She'd taken only what she'd brought into their marriage, which amounted to barely more than she could fit in her arms. His phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. He opened it to find a video of Cyrus being escorted from his office building, box of belongings in hand, tie askew. That smug smile finally wiped from his face. The message was from one of Cyrus's now former employees. Thought you'd want to see this. Karma's a bitch. Indeed it was. And it was only the beginning. 3 months passed like a cleansing fire, burning away the last remnants of Harlan's former life. He sat in his newly redecorated home office, reviewing the latest updates from his network of informants. Cyrus's fall had been spectacular. The SEC investigation revealed millions in misappropriated funds, all funneled through his spiritual seminar empire. His former partners had turned on him immediately, offering evidence in exchange for leniency. The man who once preached about transcending material desires now faced criminal charges and civil lawsuits that would keep him tied up in court for years. A message notification lit up Harlan's phone. Lorraine just finalized the divorce, she wrote. His lawyer tried arguing for alimony. Judge laughed him out of court. Thank you, Harlan. Couldn't have done this without you. How does it feel? He typed back. Like watching karma in action. He's living in a studio apartment now. No car, no assets, no prospects. Very transcendent. Harlan smiled at that. His own divorce had been finalized weeks ago, the infidelity clause ensuring Evely left with nothing but bitter regrets. Her spiritual empire had crumbled as spectacularly as Cyrus's business one. His computer chimed with an email notification. Another message from Evely, sent from a public library computer. Her phone and laptop long since reclaimed as marital assets. Please, can we talk? I'm staying at the Red Roof and on Marshall Street. Room 115. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to explain. 10 years of marriage has to mean something. Harlan read the message twice, then moved it to a folder labeled Evidence without responding. It joined hundreds of similar pleas, each one documented and archived with engineering precision. His phone rang. Morton. Cyrus tried something interesting today, the lawyer said without preamble. Attempted to register a new business. Some kind of rehabilitation program for spiritual awakening through adversity. Let me guess, you shut it down? Didn't have to. His legal troubles make him poison to any legitimate business. No bank will touch him. No investor will back him. Morton's satisfaction was evident. He's evolved beyond employability. And Evely? Working as a waitress at that diner off Highway 9. Quite a fall from spiritual guru. Morton paused. She's still trying to contact you. I know. Harlan pulled up the security footage from his front door. Evely had left another letter yesterday, her once perfect handwriting now shaky and desperate. She's evolved beyond my concern. Another email notification popped up. A message from one of Evely's former followers, now turned fierce critic. Thought you'd want to see this. She tried starting a new social media account about redemption through humility. We made sure everyone knew who she really was. No more fake enlightenment from her. Attached was a screenshot of Evely's attempted comeback, drowned in comments exposing her hypocrisy. Her carefully crafted image of spiritual superiority lay in ruins, destroyed by the very community she'd once manipulated. Harlan's doorbell rang. The security camera showed Cyrus standing on his front step, looking nothing like the polished guru who'd once preached about transcendence. His suit was cheap, his shoes scuffed, his former confidence replaced by desperate humility. Harlan, Cyrus called out. Please, just 5 minutes. I can make this right. Through the camera, Harlan watched his former friend shift nervously, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting photographers to jump from the bushes. I know you're home, Cyrus continued. Your car's here. Look, I'll do anything. Just call off the investigators. Talk to your lawyer. I'm drowning in legal fees. I can't. Harlan pressed a button on his phone. The sprinkler system activated, sending Cyrus scrambling off the porch with a yelp. Another button triggered the security recording. This is private property. Police have been notified of your trespassing. Please leave immediately. As Cyrus fled to his battered Honda, a far cry from his former luxury car, Harlan's phone buzzed with a text from the security company. Police notified of attempted contact, as requested. Want us to add extra patrols? No need, he replied. The cameras catch everything. Evening settled over the neighborhood as Harlan finished his work. His phone continued to buzz with updates about the ongoing destruction of his former wife and her lover. Cyrus banned from speaking at self-help convention. Evely's book deal canceled. publisher citing moral clause. Former seminar attendees file class action lawsuit. Each message confirmed what he'd known from the start. Their own arrogance would be their undoing. Their belief in their superiority, their certainty that they could manipulate and deceive without consequences. All of it now turned to ash. One final email arrived, from Evely, sent from another public computer. I know you read these. I know you're tracking everything. Just tell me, was any of it real? Did 10 years mean nothing? Please, Harlan. One word. That's all I'm asking for. Just one word to show you remember what we had. Harlan stared at the message for a long moment. His cursor hovered over the reply button. In his mind, he could see her sitting in some dingy internet cafe, desperately waiting for a response. He clicked the archive button instead. Let her wait. Let her wonder. Let her experience the same coldness she'd shown him, magnified by the precision of his revenge. His phone lit up with a final message for the day from Lorraine. Heard Cyrus tried visiting you. Getting desperate, isn't he? Very, Harlan replied. How's the charity gala planning going? Wonderfully. Amazing how many doors open when you're not tied to a fraud. Speaking of which, dinner next week? As friends who survived narcissists? Looking forward to it. Harlan stood at his office window, watching the sun set on another day of calculated justice. Somewhere in the city, Evely and Cyrus were living with the consequences of their choices. No more spiritual seminars, no more manipulations, no more pretense of evolution and transcendence. They had wanted to evolve beyond traditional relationships, to transcend normal human bonds. Now they had their wish. Evolved beyond prosperity, transcended past respectability, elevated to the pure state of complete ruination. His phone buzzed one last time. Evely again. Please, can we talk? He didn't block her number, didn't mark it as spam, simply left it there, unread, unanswered, a digital reminder of her desperate fall from grace. After all, wasn't that the highest form of transcendence? To evolve beyond the need for response, to transcend the urge for acknowledgement? Harlan smiled and turned off his phone. Let them beg. Let them plead. Let them experience the full weight of their choices. He had evolved beyond forgiveness.